This is a meeting of the Municipal Broadband Advisory Committee, March 5th, 2025. Notice has been posted and this meeting is being recorded. The meeting is commencing at 6:10 p.m. At Town Hall. And I'd like to get a motion to call the meeting to order.
Motion to call the meeting to order.
Second?
Second.
Yes, vote?
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about the agenda. Do we need to vote minutes in from last meeting?
I
Or?
don't think we have minutes on the agenda because I wasn't sure, so
Okay.
we'll just skip minutes right now.
Okay. It's been a while since we've chatted. So let's kind of catch up a little bit, and the big item is the first real item here. Ripple Fiber and Verizon Fiber. Did we talk about Ripple last time we had a meeting?
Just from what came in the email, but not at the last meeting.
No, we
Okay.
discussed Verizon in the last meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So the Ripple Fiber is a retail fiber provider, much like Verizon Fios. They use the shared fiber network as opposed to a coax, like Comcast does, at least here. And they reached out to the town and said, hey, we'd like to talk to somebody about building out in your town. We're supposedly building out in the area, and we're looking to get this done and build out and provide service in the South Coast area. So I was able to swing a preliminary meeting with two of the people from Ripple Fiber just to get a handle on who they are and what they want to do, and they seemed very gung-ho. They wanted to, they said they're ready to go. They've got money. This is a private enterprise, and I don't know what their long-term game plan is, whether it's to be a provider forever and build customers, or it could be, who knows? They could be building the network out and hoping to sell it to Verizon so they don't have to go through the build-out process. But either way, it's not. It was an interesting situation for me to look at it, because it's not like they're connecting to a broader network to provide broader services. It's not, typically networks kind of, migrate out or go along a path. They're down south. They've got customers up and running. North Carolina or South Carolina?
I don't remember. Yeah.
But there's, that's down there and we're up here, and not a whole lot of synergies that would be working from a typical network expansion plan. But they say they've got all the money and they've been given their marching orders to get in and build. So they have met with Peter and the director of Public Works. You want to talk about the substance of that meeting?
So I think after Kevin's meeting, we drilled down on them a little bit more on their plans in the area, and they are looking to basically build from almost New Bedford up to North Attleboro, they said, kind of all in this area. I think one of the things that came up was New Bedford put out an RFP or an RFQ, I forget which one, because they're looking to build a system in New Bedford, like a municipal system somehow, using a private entity. And so I think they were in talks with New Bedford about building there. So I think that's kind of like what you were talking about. Normally they expand out, and it does seem like they have some kind of expansion plan, like for the whole area. And so I know the meeting that I met with them, we had like 6 of them in the room. There's a couple of techs and a couple of government affairs people. So their team was pretty strong. They were hiring somebody that was gonna be a more on-person tech for Massachusetts. They were in the process of doing that. That was probably about 2 months ago now, it was sometime in January. They had a lot of questions on, you know, what the permitting process was like, what the in town, and who would they have to get permits through. So the town has this group called the Technical Advisory Committee, basically, or group, that when large-scale projects in town are gonna happen, they come in and talk to town staff first. It's got members, it's got the Conservation Commissioner in it, it's got the building inspector, the planning director, I think.
Public safety.
Public safety's in it. So they're all in one room, and basically it's a way to pitch your project to a whole host of the department heads and get any kind of feedback on the project that they may face. So they were supposed to do that yesterday, but I guess they didn't get their stuff in time, so they're looking to do that in 2 weeks, I guess, is the next plan, because that technical reviewers group meets twice a month, and it's usually the first and third Tuesday of the month, I think. We also suggested that once they kind of get through that process, that maybe they want to go in front of the select board, and maybe even this committee at some point, maybe we just hold like a joint meeting where they can just introduce themselves, say what they want to do again, you know, or we could also zoom in with them at just a meeting for us if we feel like we wanted to drill down on them a little bit more before a select board meeting. But they seem to, I mean, they did admit that they're not looking to do the full town. I think we figured out when we were doing our survey, well, when we were doing our study, that there was about 11,000 parcels in town. They're looking to cover about 9,000-ish. They wouldn't tell me exactly where. I keep on asking, I'm like, you don't have to give me state secrets. If you just tell me, like, we're gonna go 3 miles north of Route 6 and 5 miles south of Route 6, I said, I'm not gonna hold you to it.
Right.
Like, I just was kind of trying to figure out where, you know, so I definitely think like the far north and the far south are gonna get left out of this plan. So, and then they also do not, right now, service businesses, they said. They are residential only, which I kind of, yeah, I thought.
Kind of weird.
I thought it was kind of weird, but maybe they just feel like businesses are, like, would pull a lot more bandwidth, so they just worried about it.
Especially with a university in town, that's odd.
So, I mean, and again, they weren't against expanding, you know, I just asked if they were doing both business and residential, and they said, you know, no, mostly residential. They don't, their business model doesn't really lend towards the business side of it.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know, we'll see where it goes. Like I said, the first step is that technical reviewers meeting to really see what kind of pushback they would get from the other department heads, because they are gonna need to, like, you know, they had all questions about conservation land, wetlands, like, because they really wanna, it seemed like they wanted to do more burial of the lines versus on the poles, because they feel like that's, they understand that burial is more expensive, but they also said that they feel like they save, it's a wash when the amount of time that it takes for them to get permission to be on the poles and to have to change out poles that may need to be changed out to service their wires. So they feel like they make up the difference by not having to do that and just burying them.
Wow.
There are also, you know, with the DPW, there are also roads that, you know, once they pave, they go through a certain period of time where they say there's not going to be any cuts.
Yeah, and that was discussed at the meeting we had was, and I think at some point they're gonna look for a list of roadways that are underneath that moratorium. I think, if I remember correctly from the meeting, if it's like a partial, like, layover or something, it's like 5 years. If it's a full reconstruction, it's 10 years. So actually, and, you know, Eversource is going through that here on Slocum Road. They just recently redid Slocum Road, and they had an emergency repair that they had to do, and Eversource is going to be paying for the whole Slocum Road up to where they dug out, all the way down to Route 6 to be fully repaved once they finish their like, because now that they've opened it up, they're like, oh, we're gonna continue going down and hit all the side streets. It's basically just north of the stadium where they started like last summer, and they're gonna go all the way to Route 6, and they're doing all the whatchamacallits on the either side. This is the Broadband Committee. Yeah. Yeah.
Super cool.
But yeah, so that, they did know about that, and our DPW director did tell them that, you know, here's the policies, and so they had that, and they asked about what roads were currently underneath which bands, so, he said he had a list somewhere, so, like I said, I know at some point they're gonna wanna look at that list. And they do admit that they're gonna have to go aerial at places, but their comment was they were gonna try to do more burial than aerial in the long run.
So that, you know, the interesting thing to me is that we now have two projects from different and new providers that are being relatively proposed. Who knows what the real scope is, but at the end of the day, it's really coming out to be, you know, where we were looking at a feast, I mean, a famine, you know, now we're starting to look a little bit more like a feast. That also affects, you know, the take rates if there's a second provider, and then if we come in, you know, and go down the path of building and offering our own, you know, that this could affect the take rate. So I think that it is an unforeseen bogey in the process. But I think it's important to, you know, and we're kind of starting to walk into the next item is, you know, we've got a select board, a meeting before the select board on Monday. And at that meeting, we need to introduce Entry Point, have them do a 15 to 20-minute review of the feasibility study and what providing our own internet access would look like, as well as all the options that are involved. But that is also has the backdrop now of you know, Verizon getting a grant. You know, Peter and I have some questions about what the grant really covers, because when you read the grant, unserved customers have to be served within 2 years. And if you take a look at their map that's part of the grant, there's about, I don't know, 5 or 10 dots that are well north of Route 6 that are the only, what they're calling unserved areas. So I'm starting to wonder, like, well, what was the millions of dollars of grant money for? Is it for just hitting them, or is it just, you know?
When you say unserved, are those houses that currently don't have, like Comcast
They don't have Comcast.
heading up to, okay.
And I think they, if I recall correctly, they're defining unserved or underserved as the same and less than 100 megs of, the opportunity to buy less than 100 megs of bandwidth
Okay.
downstream. So that's, you know, dial-up doesn't cut it.
Is Verizon DSL even a thing anymore?
Oh, yeah, it definitely, I mean, it's distance sensitive from the central office, but it is generally available if you're close to a central office. You know, it just doesn't work. The signal attenuates over the copper too quickly. And so it's really kind of a really old product, and you're not gonna get 100 meg over twisted pair copper. But there are some services where they take like 8 pairs and smash them together, and I think it's called a Barracuda box, and they try and eke out some bandwidth that way. It's very inexpensive, but it's highly unreliable, and I don't think they do that anymore, especially with the advent of competing products like Fios. But so as we go before the select board, you know, the important thing is we were charged with the purpose of doing a feasibility analysis of what it would take, what it would look like, and what our options would be, and how much would they cost to provide our own bandwidth. Entry Point was the chosen vendor. They're gonna do their dog and pony. And then after that's done, then, we were thinking about, how are we going to position ourselves to the select board? Like, does the select board have, an interest in us continuing, pursuing any of these options, hold and monitor, break up? What does the select board want us to do? So that's kind of where my thought is, and Peter's thought was that, we kind of agreed. How do you guys feel about taking that approach with the select board? Kind of saying, hey, we're people that have dedicated our time here, and do you have any further need for this, or do you want us to hold and keep tabs on things as they move along, or
I think kind of, keeping tabs a little bit, I mean, is Verizon a definite right now?
Well, they won the grant.
Yep.
So they have 2 years to serve the unserved markets. But what I would like some more definition from Verizon is, well, what's your plan to hit the rest of the area?
Right.
Because there's literally, if you dropped, 5 to 10 marbles in a big tray, that's what the map looks like. So it's kind of like, the idea here is, well, you got money from the state, how are you gonna use it? Because those would be really expensive connections if it was focused exclusively on what your map details.
And again, I mean, they submitted like a larger portion that included Dartmouth. So that 30 million, I think, that they got awarded total wasn't just for Dartmouth. It was like a bigger plan that they roped in all these communities that had all these little underserved things. And like obviously New Bedford and Fall River have more underserved areas, so it like if they're just building to build between, but I think I finally got a hold of their actual application. I can send it to you guys if you want to. I did put MBI is the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, I think, and they're the ones who are controlling putting out the money for Massachusetts and the money that Massachusetts got from the federal government. And so that's where that project goes through.
But there was a specific amount that was dedicated to Dartmouth.
Yeah, I haven't been able to drill down on that part. Like, on the actual, like, what was for Dartmouth only, but yeah, you're right, because it is broken out that way. So I'm sure somebody has a formula that each dot means $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever it is.
I've seen that, and I don't recall the number, so I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stab a guess, but I know there was a 2 in front of it.
Right. So I mean, keeping tabs, like the other option I thought of was, we could look into having Ripple, again, meet with this committee and, do a little, presentation on what they're looking to do. Trying to reach out to Verizon. I think the town does have a government affairs person at Verizon, that asking if that government affairs person and anyone that they would like to bring to this committee, again, meet with the committee, just to advise us on what they're looking to do and whatever they can talk about. And then, just being another voice back to the select board of, you should probably work with this group or work with that group. Or again, if the town feels like, they can support the project and they still want to go forward, it's just a tough pill to swallow when you know that there could be 2 other competitors in your backyard.
It's just, we just went years and years and years without fiber, and then all of a sudden it's just like, now it's like.
Well, and Entry Point did say this, like, I remember one of our first meetings with them, they said, you will have somebody that's gonna overbuild in your town, and you're gonna build fiber, but the problem is, I remember them saying that in other parts of the country, these people go in, they build out, and then they sell out to the large Verizon or local cable company, and you're back to only having the monopoly again, because, you know, they're not really in it for the long haul. I don't know what Ripple is in, I'm not saying, you know, that's what Ripple's in for, but, you know, I remember Entry Point, and I was like, oh, really? Somebody's gonna come here and just build and then wanna sell out, but, you know, if that's what the case is, then, you know, it could be. And so, again, we could sit on it and think we're gonna have 3 or 4 competitors, and all of a sudden, in 5 years, we're back to the one big cable company that manages it all, and that's it.
Yeah.
I will say this, though, you know, the network architecture for Comcast is coax-based, and it's terrible. Particularly, you know, like when we talked about the attenuation of DSL, you know, copper attenuates, or signal attenuates within copper. And when you put in a repeater, it not only repeats this signal, but also the noise that it's picked up along the way. So repeaters really aren't that great of a thing. But when you get into fiber, the bandwidth quality is less shared, but it's still shared. And, you know, when you have fiber, you put in what's called a regenerator instead of a repeater, because it actually, because it's instead of waves, it's bits. And, you know, and if you know, if it's a 1, it's a 1. And if you have some noise in that signal that somehow you've gotten on the fiber, and you have to, you know, strengthen or clean up the signal, then it regenerates into the 1, a clean 1, or 0. You know, it's really not, you know, it's a much better architecture that will be a great improvement. So even if Comcast did say, hey, I'm gonna buy you guys out, if it's shared fiber, are you gonna get the same customer service that we're used to with Comcast? Yes, I would imagine so. Are you gonna get you know, a 1 gig by 1 gig connection to the internet that's relatively stable and, you know, more easy to repair, and, you know, you don't have to worry about the end of the line like I am with Comcast. So even that would be an improvement.
Right.
But like to Peter's point, you know, they may say, well, you know, we're the only game in town, so instead of your anticipated $80 for, you know, a symmetric gig, we're gonna charge you $150. Who knows? So getting back to the original question, do you guys have any kind of input or ideas about how we should position ourselves before the select board?
I mean, they're also aware of all this, right? And they get their finger on the pulse of
I
this
don't think,
somewhat.
I don't think they know about 2 companies. I mean, I've said that Verizon was, like, in informal conversations with them, I've said, we've heard about Verizon coming in.
Yeah.
But I don't think they know about the second company. I haven't really mentioned that to them. So, I mean, I do know that, you know, just listening to these meetings, there are a lot of big capital projects that this town is facing in the next so many years. And, you know, money can only go so far. So that's my concern is, and, you know, I've been asked
If Chris
straight
were
out.
here, he would echo that.
Right. I've been asked straight out by one select board member, where do I think the priority is? And I said, well, I can't answer what Dartmouth's priority is because I'm not a town resident. I said, I can tell you that if this was for me in my city, I like the idea of the municipality owning the transport system, because by owning it, you can somewhat control the costs. And you're not open, and, you know, like, you know, if you're looking at internet service now, it's like looking at it as water, sewer, electricity, like, it's
essential.
you need it, and everyone needs it, and so, like, it just, you know, so if a community has the flexibility to pay for it, then great. But on the other hand, I also understand that, you know, building new schools building a new water treatment plant that you might need, or a sewer treatment plant that you need. You know, you need to hold your capital, like, there's only so much that they can bond out at a time.
I guess,
And so-
I guess the question is, how competitive does it get in towns that have Verizon and Comcast in the same location? Is it basically a gentleman's agreement where they both are like, we won't go below this? Or are they constantly trying to undercut each other, and is there actual savings to be had? You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know, we've never had two options in this town, so I guess we gotta talk to somebody, we'd have to talk to somebody.
Well, I mean,
else.
I don't think Comcast would be another option right now, because like, Kevin has said, their plant is far inferior to any of these other plants that somebody's building. So, that's what scares me, is that this Ripple's coming in, and Comcast must know that they're inferior in this area, and knows that Verizon's looking to do something, so that's what makes me think that this is like, somebody in the background building it for a larger company. But again, we didn't ask that, we didn't, approach that at all.
You couldn't really get an answer if you did ask.
Right, and we're not going, I think there is a good chance that you're gonna see that.
Welcome to come.
But I guess, we're back to, what do we say to the select board? Is a safe thing to say, like I think John was saying about just keep tabs and like maybe try to invite the other groups in to try to get a gauge on what they are and then see if they're serious players. And
Serve as the town's liaison, basically, yeah, I'm down with that. Just
Okay.
ask questions, yeah.
yeah. And
It
then
will be
maybe,
their investigative tool.
and then maybe report back to them in 4 to 6 months on what we found out about these two other companies.
Yeah.
And see if, and then also, I think it gives the select board time to let it soak in and see if there's support on whether or not the town wants to.
Now, just a question about Ripple. Would they come in and just run cable and then run fiber route? That's what I meant. But would they be your internet provider? Like,
Yes.
we would pay
Ripple.
Me as a resident, I would pay Ripple for my internet service at my house.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, it is not an open network like what we've contemplated with Entry Point, where, your Entry Point was contemplating either a private or a public-private partnership to build the local loop that would have a point of interconnection to other carriers like AT&T, Verizon, Ripple, whoever, RCN, they would, if they had network in the area, then they would interconnect with our network, and that would give us our customers, if we went down that path, the ability to leverage our local loop to then pick what carrier they're gonna use.
Okay.
And literally, you can log in to your account and pick by the day even, oh, well, AT&T's got a better deal today, and then, so your local loop cost, I mean, it's just like delivery of, gas, your gas bill and your electric bill, there's a delivery charge and there's a usage charge. So there would be, similar to a similar concept.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that we'd be open to being considered a go-to for the select board, and it would be okay to offer that up.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we needed a formal vote on that, but I think we're all in agreement there. So really, that's the lion's share of what we have on the agenda to talk about. Do you guys have any other questions or anything that you want to bring up, or any kind of open items that we haven't covered?
I don't think so.
No, do not.
Okay. Do you all want to come on Monday? I'm planning on attending, and,
Aaron
I have a
can't.
gig, I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
okay.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, it's all right.
I gotta take the jobs as they come,
I will see if I can make it. I will try. I'll let you know.
Peter, you gonna be there?
I will be there, yes.
And I'll be there.
And you'll be there, so. Yeah, we're on for 5:45 now. I think I said 5:30, but they had a little bit of an executive session that they have to do beforehand.
Okay.
So, I did tell them that both you and I have to be out of there by 6:30 to go to other places.
Yeah,
You have a planning board meeting and I have a concert I have to get to.
got it.
A school concert up the street, so, so they are aware of that, so we'll keep it as tight as possible.
I have to be at that concert too, so.
There you go.
So I think it might be worthy then for us to give the backdrop of where we stand and what's going on to the select board first.
Okay.
Because if we run into a time situation,
Yep.
I'd rather give up entry points time than have us properly communicate what's going on in the town.
Okay.
Which is outside of entry point.
Yep.
So, you wanna do that? You want me to do it? What?
You-
I really don't care.
It's your committee, so you, you can do it if you
Only
like.
because I didn't step backward with everybody else.
I am fine to do it if you want me to, or if you wanna do it.
No, I'll be happy to
Okay,
to
that's
just
great.
give a
Yeah.
brief overview and
Yeah.
kind of bring them up to speed.
Right.
And I'm gonna be doing that ahead of individually,
Yeah.
because I know just about everybody on the
Yeah.
select board anyway.
So, yeah, I think we keep it, like, I think when I told them that entry point, we gave 15 to 20 minutes, and that the committee probably would have like a 5-minute quick, like, just bring you up to speed.
Mhm.
And then that would leave, 15 minutes or so for any kind of questions. So,
Okay. All right, that's it. Unless there's anything else that you guys want to add? Okay, motion to adjourn
Seconded. Is that, yeah, seconded, yeah.
so move second, yep.
and
All in
vote yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
There we go.
Great.
All right.